summer of love.
What's up everybody, it's Bro here, and today we are back for another Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck profile, and this time we're doing Mekk-Knight. It's a new archetype coming out in Extreme Forces, and since the sneak peek preview came out this weekend, I thought I'd go ahead and build the deck, so that way you guys could see, for those of you who are opening the packs of the sneak peek, so you could go ahead and get an idea of how this deck plays, and what you need to do for it. So, to start off, I'm going to go ahead and give you the general theme of what Mekk-Knights do. So all of their level 5 or higher monsters have a first effect that goes along the lines of something like this. If there are 2 or more cards in the same column, you can special summon this monster to that column. You can only special summon this Mekk-Knight once per turn that way. They all have that effect, and then they all have a second effect, which we'll discuss one by one. Let's jump right into the deck profile with Mekk-Knight Avram. So he is really the only exception to what I was saying, is because it's a level 4 normal monster, and he's really only there for story from what I understand. Plus the field spell gives us a reason to run this, plus we run one rank 4 Xyz monster, and this can help us get us there. Anyways, let's move on to the rest of the Mekk-Knights with 3 Lavender Dusk, which is a searcher for the deck. It's a quick effect. You can target a Mekk-Knight monster you control, and you can banish it until the standby phase of your next turn. And if you do, you can add a Mekk-Knight from your deck to your hand. And of course, that's a hard once per turn effect. Also, you can't add itself. But with 2500 attack, it is a really good card, and probably the best. Well, I wouldn't say the best. It's probably one of the best Mekk-Knights in the deck. The only ones that I think are better are these next 3, or these next 2, rather. My bad. So anyways, this dude, if an opponent's card in this card's column is destroyed by battle or leaves the field, you can special summon a Mekk-Knight monster from your hand. And this dude is crazy good because he has 3000 defense, which first off, most cards aren't going to be able to get over, and whereas he himself doesn't have any protection, it just works out well with the rest of the deck. And the fact that you can just special summon your Mekk-Knights without having to use their own effect makes it so that you can just keep going and extending your plays. Alright, next up we have 3 Blue Sky. Least favorite name, but probably my favorite Mekk-Knight in terms of effect, because he can search out multiple Mekk-Knights from your deck at the same time based on the number of cards in the same column as this one. And that happens whenever he's summoned from the hand. So the only thing is that his effect isn't like a constant, it's a one-time thing, but I still think he's the best just because if you summon him at the right time, you can search out 3 Mekk-Knights from your deck, which is crazy. Like, that is insane. But it's a definite 3 of. Like I said, I don't think it'd be wise to run it at anything less than the 3 of, but of course it is up to you. Next up we have 1 ofs just for the field spell. There's one of these that I think is pretty good, and I would recommend running it too in maybe a different build, but this is just a very standard structure for it. So this dude has a quick effect where you can target a Mekk-Knight you control and move that monster to another one of your main monster zones. So he's decent in the mirror match. He's not too great when it comes to like a normal duel, because most people don't run column-based support. He has his niche with like certain effects activating, but really there's just not much going for him, because his quick effect is free. Like, there's no cost to it, but you're just not going to find yourself using it too often. Plus his stats aren't anything to go crazy over. His attack is decent, but it's just not really worth running at anything more than 1 in my opinion. Next up we have the Golden Blossom. Probably my favorite in terms of design. I think it just looks really good. But its effect is that you can banish a Mekk-Knight from your graveyard, then target a spell or trap on the field in this card's column and destroy it. So It is pretty good. My only thing is that it targets. Like, I think that having a card like this target, it's just for its steep cost, it's just not worth it in my opinion. So we run it at 1. Of course, this can get rid of like problematic cards, I guess, but you're probably not going to be going against a deck that's running continuous spells or traps. The only thing that I can maybe think of is if True Draco's cards got unbanned or something, and then in that case, then yeah, of course, but I doubt it. So we also have Red Lotus, or Crimson Lotus, my bad. And he has a similar effect. You can banish a Mekk-Knight from your graveyard and target a face-up monster in this card's column and destroy it. So you're probably going to be using this on a Borolo Dragon or anything in the extra monster zone, because most link monsters don't really have protection for themselves. They either are protected by other cards or protect other cards. So they usually just don't have a way of defending themselves, and Crimson Lotus can sort of expose that. There are other cards that of course it can affect, but typically speaking, you're probably going to go for a link monster. Next up, here's probably the best one of that we have, Verdant Gale. So when this card declares an attack against an opponent's monster in the same column, you can target a Mekk-Knight monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. So the only reason why like I don't run him at more is because his attack isn't that good, and he just has troubles attacking over certain things. And like with the field spell, he has technically 2400, but still, it's just not that impressive. And but his effect is pretty good, because then you have more stuff to work with. But I don't know, I just think that it would have been better if he special summoned them directly from the graveyard, but that's just my opinion. 3 Honest, because everything in the deck is pretty much light. 3 Ash, because you need it. 2 Ogre, because you need it. Same with the Maxi. And moving on to our spells. 3 World Legacy Scars, it's the field spell of the deck. All Mekk-Knights gain a 300 attacking defense, then once per turn you can discard a Mekk-Knight to draw a card. You can banish 8 Mekk-Knight monsters, all with different names, from your graveyard or face up on the field, and then banish or send to the graveyard your opponent's entire hand and extra deck. So basically you get rid of everything they have, if you can banish the 8 Mekk-Knights, which is it's just so crazy. Plus your link monster, the Mekk-Knight link monster, does have the name Mekk-Knight, so you don't even have to run that normal monster if you don't want to, but I just enjoy it because it does make that a little bit more consistent. Also, we run 3 Terraforming to search out the field spell, a Raigeki, because it's Raigeki. You don't need to run it in the deck, honestly, because most of the time you're going to want your opponent to have monsters on the board, because it helps with summoning your Mekk-Knights. But what I usually do is I'll summon all my Mekk-Knights and then use a Raigeki to basically clean their board. We also have 3 Key to the World Legacy, and when it's activated you can target one of your banished Mekk-Knight monsters and add it to your hand. And then when an opponent's trap card or effect is activated in the same column as a Mekk-Knight you control, negate the effect. No cost for negating the effect, by the way, which is crazy good. And like what that means, trap card or effect, is that any standing effect that activates, so say your opponent has a monster that its effect activates whenever a spell is activated. So say as soon as this card is activated, and then your opponent activates a spell that, or an opponent's monster effect activates, but it's in the same column as another Mekk-Knight, the effect would just automatically be negated. And then whenever your opponent flips up a trap, it gets negated before its effect activates. So as soon as the trap card is flipped up, then it just goes to the graveyard, no effect activated. So yeah, this is sort of your recovery for the 2 cards that banish. You're probably not going to be using its first effect too often, but it is protection and control for the deck, so it's really nice. 2 Pot of Desires, we only run 2 because not everything in here is a 3 of, but the draw 2 is just too good to pass up on. You just got to sort of hope that you don't banish your 1-ofs. But if you do, it's really not that big of a deal. You can still win pretty easily just by beating over everything. We also have 3 Whisper. So it's basically Call of the Haunt. Or no, this one is not the Call of the Haunt, my bad. This one gives 1,000 attack to any Mekk-Knight, basically, except for the normal monster one. And then when an opponent's spell card or effect is activated, in the same column as a Mekk-Knight you control, it negated effects. So basically it's the same thing except for spells instead of traps. Whenever the spell is activated, just immediately get negated, and then continuous effects get negated as well. Or like trigger effects that are already face up, those get negated as well. So it's pretty good. The 1000 is nice. Like basically what this is good for is whenever you have one of your Mekk-Knights out, you can use this and then honest it as well, which just makes it crazy powerful. So if your opponent isn't careful when playing against you, they're going to end up just hurting themselves. We also have 2 True Depths of the World Legacy. This is the Call of the Haunted for the deck. For any Mekk-Knight, it just special summons them from the graveyard, which is really nice. You can bump it up to 3 if you want to, but I like it at 2. I think it's fine. And then it has the same thing except for monster effects, but it's just opponent monsters effects. No spells, no traps, just monsters. And that's why I only run it at 2, because it's not as free as the other 2 Mekk-Knight spells and traps are. Alright, moving on to our extra deck. We have 2 Clearwing. It's just such a good card. I'm not going to be going over most of the extra deck stuff because you should know it by now. This is what the meta is. Moonlight Rose, we run one of it because it sort of outs. It can out really. It's just an out. Like I can't really describe it. It's just an out to monsters that you can't get rid of. So say a Boral Dragon, you can get rid of it. So it just helps you get rid of special summon monsters that can be targeted, of course. That's sort of what the Clearwing is for as well. It has a very similar effect. Omega, because it does free up your extra zone, of course, and you can make this using like the Mekk-Knights and then one of your Ogres or Ashes. So it's just really easy to make. So we run 2 of it. Baguska, you use your normal monster and then Honest. It's just such a good floodgate, or like stall tactics, I guess, more or less. We have Imduke, so you're not going to be using its first, or its like double summon effect, but however, this time we're actually going to be using its second effect. At the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster that it points to, you can destroy that monster. So this can get rid of problematic things. So say you have your Avram, and you need it in the grave, or you just don't have a purpose for it. You can always go into Imduke and then just get rid of a problematic monster. So it's pretty nice. Akashik, similar thing, getting rid of problematic monsters. And most of everything in this deck has the same type, so you don't gotta worry about that. 3 of the Mekk-Knight Link monster. I will be going into its effect because it's a lot different from the other Mekk-Knights, so prepare for a speech practically. So while there are no cards in the same column as this one, it can attack directly. Also, if it does not point to a monster, it cannot be destroyed by card effects. Also, your opponent cannot target it with card effects. You can send one other card you control in this card's column to the graveyard, and then special summon a Mekk-Knight monster from your deck in defense position. That last effect is really, I mean, all of its effects are good, but you're going to be using that last one a lot. So say if you have a trap card, like the one of the Mekk-Knight trap cards set in the same column as this one, which is what you want to do, you can get rid of it and then summon your, I forget his name, Amber Shade. And then you can use his effect. So this card really extends your, or starts off plays and combos. So it's just really good. We have Ningirsu. Once again, this is really for outing. You can send anything. You're probably never going to be activating its draw effect because this deck does not spam link monsters. So it doesn't have the power to use his draw effect. But being able to send any card from your opponent's field to the graveyard without targeting or without destroying, it's just really convenient. Firewall, it's just such a good card. No explanation needed for it. Scolded, this one explains itself. You should know about this one if you've been into Yu-Gi-Oh! For a while. First off, I'm pretty sure it's the only Link 4 that gives you 3 arrows. The only unfortunate thing about it is that it does point 1 at your opponent. But yeah, wow, it's just really good. Boral Dragon, once again, this is for outing things. So yeah, Now, moving on to something interesting. This is just something I wanted to talk about real quick. So this is a new card coming out in Extreme Forces, Sensor Diffration. I forget what it's actually called. I'll put it up like in quotations or whatever on the screen. But each player can only control one monster of each type and send all other monsters they control to the graveyard. So this of course doesn't work in Mekk-Knights because most of their monsters are the same type, which is Psychic. But in other decks, such as World Chalice, maybe, it could be a good card to tech in, and maybe Spirals, they could tech it in. It's just an interesting choice, because if you know you're playing against a deck that is very consistent with its typings, you know, you can just side this against it, and, you know, I don't know what the meta is going to shape out to be, but if it turns out, say, like, Trickstars end up on top, or Pendulum Magicians make a comeback because of Electromite, run this, because it's actually a pretty good side option, because it makes it so that your opponent just can't control monsters, basically. So it's just really good. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck profile, and if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you click that subscribe button. Please, that subscription is the most important part of what I just said. Also add this video to your favorites and any other playlists you want, because I need views and subscribers. So yeah. Anyways, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time, and as always, have a roaring good day.